This is The Collection. Now your host, the Boat, Brad Gilmore.
And he's joining me right now to talk about Masters of Puppets, the play coming to the stage at the Legacy Theater in Branford, Connecticut. One of the principal roles joins me. You've seen this man all over television and movies for decades now, and he's taking his talents to the stage. He is Mr. Kurt Fuller. Kurt, how are we doing today?
Oh, very well, thank you. My God, you make me sound more important than I feel, but I appreciate it.
Well, you are important, man, and you're important in this production of Masters of Puppets. When this first kind of landed on my radar, that James Roday Rodriguez is producing a wrestling-centric play, it literally touched all the buttons for me. It hit all the categories. It was something that I just automatically wanted to know more about. Tell me, how did Masters of Puppets end up on your radar? Was it through James, or how did you kind of get this gig?
Well, I know James. I was in Psych for many years and was a friend of James before then. But yes, it came to me through James Roday, as many things do. And he knew that I had been in No Holds Barred in 24. I don't know. Okay, 1989. It was after Talkie started. Okay, 1989. And that was sort of one of my first jobs ever. And this Masters of Puppets, he said, just read the script, read it, tell me what you think. And it felt so genuine. It reminded me of so many, I saw Vince, I saw Hulk, I saw all those guys that, it's not a play about wrestling. It's a play that takes place. It's a play about sex, money, and power, basically, and a marriage, a high-powered marriage that takes place in the world of wrestling and behind the scenes of a World Wrestling Federation or WWE type business. And there's wrestlers in it, and there's powerful people in it. There's losers in it. There's baby faces. There's just, if you like comedy, drama, or wrestling, you're gonna like this play. So that is everybody.
Well, yeah, I mean, when I talked to James last week about it, he said, imagine Succession with just a wrestling backdrop to it, the HBO show Succession, and it kind of sounds like what you're describing.
Yeah, but he did it, of course, as usual, much better and much more succinctly than I did. Because I'm just here, grasping at straws, and he knows what he's talking about.
So James tells you to read the script. You read it, and you say, okay, I see all these characters. I see what you're going for here. Did he tell you to pay attention to a certain character that he had you in mind for?
It was obvious what he had me in mind for. He had me in mind for what everybody's going to think is the Vince McMahon character. And okay, he's sort of like Vince McMahon, but I don't know if you've ever met Vince McMahon, but nobody is going to play or imitate Vince McMahon. He is a singular presence and force. I am playing a powerful and flawed man in this play. A brilliantly flawed person who has a great rise, and with all great rises come great falls. And not with all, but with most. And this is also the case, who has a very powerful, maybe even smarter wife. That's what's going on. That's the dynamic at work.
So when I want to talk about No Holds Barred. I want to talk more about Masters of Puppets because the play runs now through June the 11th, and the final shows are coming down this week at the Legacy Theater. Make sure you get tickets if you haven't already. But were you a pro wrestling fan at all prior to your kind of now two forays into the genre? Did you grow up a wrestling fan?
I grew up, wrestling when I was growing up wasn't that interesting. I mean, it was just, two very beefy guys going at it. And it wasn't, I don't know exactly when it was turned into like what it is today or how it started, but it wasn't when I grew up in the 50s. I grew up, in the 50s and early 60s. And it just wasn't that interesting to a kid. If I was a kid now watching wrestling today or watching wrestling in the past 20 years, I would have been much more interested. And so when I did the movie, I thought of wrestling as the way I used to see it, with these two guys just sort of bouncing off the ropes and running into each other, bouncing off the ropes and slamming each other with their arm, and just wasn't, all the stories and all the drama and all the everything. It just wasn't there. Uh, and that's the genius of probably Vince, or his dad. I think his dad did it the other way, and he took it to the next level. Uh, when I finally met Vince and met Hulk, or Terry, as he insisted I call him, um, and all the wrestlers that would come to the set and I was fascinated by it, and I started going to, they asked me to go, and I wanted to go to a couple of big events, and it blew my mind. It was a whole. It's unimaginable what they've done and how interesting and dramatic it is, and how they've made these huge stakes. So much is at stake in wrestling, and I mean, my God, it's just mind-boggling, and it's impossible to not get caught up in it. So I don't seek wrestling out, but when it comes on, I don't change the channel. And if somebody said, "Hey, I'm going to go see so and so," I'd say, "Yeah, I'm coming."
You are
But
right.
would I say I'm a big devotee of wrestling? No.
But you're right. When you see a live event, there's something different there. I mean, I find myself, I get up out of my seat.
Oh yeah,
I mean, I'm on the edge when a big match is
yeah,
occurring, and you get swept
absolutely.
up in the pageantry and the drama and the storytelling of these incredible
Mm-hmm.
performers. So when you do no Holds Barred, was Vince around a lot? I mean, because he produced the movie. I know this was the first kind of big WWF film at the time. Was he around the set a lot?
He was around a lot. Yeah, he was around, especially at the beginning. I know he had a hand in getting the script from where it started to where it ended up. Um, and he has a lot to do every day, but he was there, and he was very, very personable, and I mean, I've never met anybody who just was he could sell you anything. He could sell you anything. And the kind of confidence he has, and just the size of his personality. I'd never met anybody like Vince. Vince, to me, came from another planet when I met him. He was another kind of being. He existed in a totally different world than I lived in. And I found him absolutely fascinating. Absolutely. I could have talked to him all day long.
So was Vince, you mentioned that he was involved in the script from the early goings. He was on set. He's a producer, which is kind of a vague term, but I'm sure he had his hand in everything. Did he have his hand in casting? Was he involved in your casting at all?
Oh, listen, I was a completely unknown actor at the time. I was selling real estate when I auditioned for this movie, trying to make it in show business. And I went in, and physically I was big, kind of big, tall, but not big, and have a kind of menacing presence when I want to. And they put me through like 6 long, hard auditions. All right. I mean, they'd have me do this stuff, and they'd have me yell, and they'd have me be quiet. They have me cry. It was like I was auditioning for War and Peace or something. I mean, it's goddamn, excuse me, it was no holds barred. Come on, guys, get a grip. And what I found out later, after the 5th audition, I got the role. And Vince told me later it was because he looked outside, and I had come in and parked in the parking lot of wherever we were, and it had been raining, and I stepped in a puddle, and I apparently just got so angry and was going, ah, ah, ah. I don't know if I can say these words, but I was cussing and cursing. I was because I was about to go in for, this life-changing audition for me. And he looked, and he goes, "That's the guy." So it wasn't even anything I did in the room. It was what I did on the way to the room. And that just shows you, that just shows you. on such things, your whole life can change, you know?
That's an incredible story. I mean, and it
Yeah.
sounds, from what I understand of Vince McMahon, and I've only been around him once in my life, but it sounds like something that would, kind of tee him off of, oh, this is the guy. Get him now.
Oh,
Hire him.
he thought it was hilarious. He couldn't stop laughing about it, because, he loves, I mean, these wrestlers love to, get each other. I mean, they're constantly yanking each other's chains in major ways. I mean, they can be so vicious to each other just to laugh. So, this was right up his alley. If I'd fallen in the water face first, he would have liked it better.
And if people who have not seen No Holds Barred, it's definitely pro wrestling, not just from the story, but it's over the top. Like, it's big, it's huge, it's a big performances, and Hulk included in that. Terry, as he said, you were for him to work with. Did you enjoy? Because this is at the height of Hogan. This is like the biggest he was in that 88 to 90 range. He was a massive star.
Yep, he was huge. I mean, everybody knew who he was. And the things that interested me about Hulk, first of all, talking about big acting, they kept saying to me, bigger, yeah, be bigger. And I went to Vince once and I said, Vince, come on, this is too big. You're having me say things in a way that humans don't speak. And he said, Kurt, you're acting across from a guy who's about 6'8" and he's wearing blue spandex. You can't be big enough. And he had a point. When you see the movie, he has a point. And Hulk, number one, even then, the thing that amazed me was how many operations he'd already had, and how messed up. I mean, you say wrestling is fake, the pain is real, and those moves are incredibly athletic. And he did it. The guy hit, the heavy in this was this very large actor named Zeus in the movie, Tom Tiny Lister, who we just lost, unfortunately. But he looked like he was in incredible shape. He and Hulk kind of messed around one day. Hulk could have killed it. Hulk was so much faster, so much more flexible, so much more athletic. I mean, Tiny looked like he was standing still. He didn't know what to do. I mean, it just shows you the athletes these guys are, and the women too. It's I mean, the things they do, and Hulk wasn't like even the best athlete, really. He was just had the most charisma. But his sleeper hold, what did it take? Not a lot. But he was really an incredible athlete, and he was all about business. He was a businessman, and they're in it because they love being around in front of people. They love the world of wrestling, and they love the money. And I get it completely. That's why I'm in acting.
How for you though, was No Holds Barred, did it feel like a launching point? Like, afterward, did you feel like, hey, now I have a credit that I can really put on there and say, look, I did this movie? Or was it one of those things that you're like, not so much, like I'm not going to get a lot of work out of this?
I'm going to be on at the time, because I hadn't done anything. It was a huge deal. I mean, I was a guy, I did 4 lines on Knight Rider at the time, the original Knight Rider. Something else, Father Dowling Mysteries. Shows that people weren't even alive who were listening. They weren't born yet. I did these shows. So, and this was a major, and Vince made it sound like, I remember the opening weekend we opened the same day Indiana Jones 2 opened. Okay. And I said to Vince, this is typical Vince McMahon. I said, Vince, we're opening the same day as Indiana Jones 2. And he goes, we're going to kill him. We're going to kill him. We're going to wipe their ass. And I thought, man, this guy, he's unbelievable. And, we did not, but we didn't die either. I thought it was a big deal, but the world of Hollywood, you know, I'm lucky to have gotten beyond it. Okay. The world of Hollywood and the world of wrestling do not mix that
Right.
well. Um, and the movie is, if for a wrestling movie, it's perfect. It's actually got great cinematography, but it's a wrestling movie. And they're not, it's nothing that I can't believe that 35 years later, we're talking about No Holds Barred.
Yeah.
If you had told me then, I would have said, you're out of your mind. And here we are. So who gets the last laugh, I mean, that movie still, people talk about it. It's kind of amazing.
Yeah, no, it's still in all wrestling circles and even beyond. It's one of those like right now I'm actually working on a project revolving around 1989, and it's one of those movies that when you talk about that year, it has to be brought up. It really does.
I
You have
know.
to bring up No Holds Barred. It's just unavoidable.
I agree, and I think I mean, if they told the truth, I think they'd say they were disappointed. I think they thought it was going to be much bigger. I think they thought it was going to do huge, huge business, and it did wrestling business. It got only hardcore wrestling people, and it satisfied them, but it didn't expand. And I think that's what their plan was. And I don't know why. I don't know. I mean, I sort of know why, because it was a huge, broad, like a wrestling match, and that it's almost too big for the camera. So, but it's interesting. It's you could do a study of why No Holds Barred didn't make $200 million,
Well,
because I think they certainly thought it would.
well, Vince thought that they were going to kill Indiana Jones, and again, it's that. Sometimes I wish I had that almost irrational confidence. You know what I mean? Just to walk through a day
Oh,
as with that
yes,
amount of irrational confidence.
absolutely, absolutely. I mean, as an actor, we're sort of bred to be insecure. They want you
Sure.
to worry all the time about, because they don't want you to ask for any money, so they want you to feel. But if I had that kind of confidence, my life, I think, would be much different. It would be a better life, because I would have no doubts. I would just go straight ahead. And if something bad happened, it was because the other people were wrong, not because I was wrong. And that's a it's a gift and it's a curse,
Sure.
really. But I wish I had a little bit of that. I'll tell you, I agree.
Did did No Holds Barred help you get Ghostbusters 2, or was that already in the pipeline for you? Because they came out the same year.
It came out the same year. No, that was before No Holds Barred came out. I got Ghostbusters too, but No Holds Barred helped me get Wayne's World.
Oh, really?
Surprisingly
How did
enough,
that happen?
one of those I got one of both Mike Myers and Dana Carvey, when I was walking, like my third day of work. Uh, they both like stopped and said, rip him, Kurt, rip him. A line from No Holds Barred. So I didn't ask, but they saw it, and they thought I should be in Wayne's World. So who am I to question? Who am I to question? So yeah, it somehow they had seen No Holds Barred, which would probably surprise a lot of people.
That's interesting. Yeah, well, that's awesome to hear. Now fast forward a little bit to your connection
Yeah.
with James Roday Rodriguez. Psych, and I mean this
Hmm.
honestly, is my top two television shows of all time. I just love
Oh,
Psych. Since it came
wow.
out, I was all the way in on it.
Yeah.
You portray Woody in the show for, I believe, the last few seasons. You were in the show, and you really
Yeah.
felt like the a very important part when you came on and were in Psych. Woody, for people who don't know, was kind of an over the top, eccentric. What coroner? Is it a coroner that you were? I guess.
Coroner.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Coroner.
Yes.
Santa Barbara coroner. The Santa Barbara coroner. It's a big job.
It's a big
It's a
job.
lot of dead people. More. Who knew that there was a murder a week in Santa Barbara? I mean, it is shocking, but in Psych there was.
High crime rate. I mean, that show just seemed like it was a pleasure to be
Yeah.
on. Just the vibe, the chemistry between the
Oh,
cast, the jokes, the fun. I'm sure there's a lot of improv, especially from James Roday Rodriguez and crew.
hmm
Talk to me about your just experience working on Psych for those years.
um, if you go on the Internet Movie Database, I have over 200 credits. Okay,
Wow,
from today, I do a show on Paramount Plus called Evil. It's in its fourth season. I mean, I have not stopped. I've not stopped working since No Holds Barred. It's crazy.
incredible.
My favorite job is Psych. My favorite job. Uh, I went to do one episode and ended up doing 40 episodes. And I love those people. They're my family. It's crazy. You hear about it. It's actually true. Uh, James is still one of my closest friends. Maggie Lawson is one of my best friends. Uh, we all, we're probably going to make another movie because we can't get enough of each other. Yeah, I know. Well, of course, we're all getting everybody in the same place at one time is hard.
Sure.
But it was by far the most enjoyable, most rewarding, and most creatively rewarding experience I have ever had. I had total freedom. I could do whatever I wanted. And I would say, "Can I do that? Can I do that?" And they would say, "You're Woody. Woody can do anything." There was nothing that was off limits. So it was left up to me. And they're just all delightful people. And this is not Hollywood BS. It's really true. I could show you the text messages on my phone from everybody in the last week.
That's so
And that
great to
was,
hear because
yeah,
it seems like y'all have that camaraderie. And you're right, the character Woody, in some ways you can equate him to. There's an episode of Seinfeld that some fans point out, like where it went over the top, and Kramer builds the Merv Griffin set in his apartment and acts like he's on the television show. But I was
right,
like, no, it works for Kramer. Like he can get away with that.
right,
That's the only character. And you're right, Woody
right,
has that similar thing to where no matter what crazy thing you said you pulled out of somebody's body or you stole their
right.
watch or you whatever it was,
Crazy.
it never seemed out of place for Woody.
Yeah. And I think they got some pushback at first from the network because they said, "Well, you guys are the funny ones. Sean and Gus are funny. Everyone else is straight." And and Steve Franks, the creator, insisted that they wanted me and they wanted me to be funny and that it would be okay. And eventually, the network became very happy with it. And it got a great response from the audience, so everybody ended up happy. But it was only because James and Dulé and Steve, the creator, saw it and had the imagination and didn't feel like, "Ooh, I don't want anyone taking away my laughs." They knew there was plenty of laughs to go around, and there were. And so I'm very grateful for it. Now that show has gotten me a lot of jobs, so
I'm sure.
as opposed to No Holds Barred.
As
Yeah,
opposed to Nose Holds Barred. And in some ways, it led you to Masters of Puppets. Let me ask you, for somebody who's been
it did.
on the screen, small screen, big screen, going to the theater. I was when I was talking to James, I said the theater is actually the perfect forum for this story because wrestling is so much a theatrical production. It's live. It's in front of an audience. You're looking for feedback. If you're a baby face, you want them to cheer. If you're a heel, you want them to boo, and you want that instant gratification. For you as an actor taking the stage, is there something satisfying about getting that instant feedback from the audience?
That's a very insightful comment. You should do this for a living. Um, it's true. It is. Wrestling is theater. It is performance, and this play and babyface, heel, and what wrestling is. It's all addressed in the play. It's all there, and the lives and loves and fears and hopes are all there, and it's so great. To have an audience, they really respond, and some of it is very kind of dark, and some of it is very, very funny. And they, I have to say, so far, I mean, I'm a very skeptical, critical guy. I think it's working wonderfully, and I'm really proud to be a part of it, but it is the perfect venue for a play that takes place in the world of wrestling. And there's a lot of that performance. The wrestlers really, they're wrestlers in this play. They are crazy. They are, they're out of control. Some of them are out of control.
Now, for a play like this that's on a shorter run, this isn't something that's going to go for a year or what have you, at least in its current incarnation. Do you feel as though, even though you're in these last final 5 shows, I'm assuming with the more reps you get, the more gelled the cast becomes, the better the timing is. You know when to emphasize certain jokes more than others. When you get to that kind of rhythm and then it's over, it's almost somewhat of a shame, right?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, when we end, it was always going to be this limited run. They have other things they have coming in. It was just really, it's the first time. It's a brand new play. It's the first time. It's sort of like doing a test in front of an audience and then going back and re-editing and reshooting and whatever. We're just going to be hitting our groove. I guarantee the last 2 or 3 performances will be absolutely the best, because it's gotten better every time we do it. Because I'm just learning things now, and more, different ways, more subtle ways to do things, more ways, funnier ways to do things. When you act and you have the lines, and sometimes you don't really understand what's exactly really going on. It just occurs to you. All that stuff is happening now, so it's kind of a shame that, well, geez, I'm just getting good. I'm just now getting good, and now we're stopping. What the heck? But that's better than film, where, here, if I do something I don't like it, I think about it and I try something tomorrow night. You're doing a movie or a show, you're screwed. You go home and you think, I blew that. They're not going back. That's it. That's it forever. So I much prefer this style of acting. I just, you can't make a living as a stage actor unless you're, Matthew Broderick, there's a couple people, but I'm just happy to do it. I love it. I love doing it. It's why I became an actor. It just, I couldn't do it all the time. Having 2 children.
Having 2 children and working on the golf game. Like, you got to have
and there's a lot of lessons. Yeah.
A lot of lessons. Masters of Puppets is running now through June 11th at the Legacy Theater in Branford, Connecticut. You can get tickets still online right now for the final 5 performances, and see Kurt Fuller, along with the other cast, produce this incredible play with the backdrop of the world of wrestling. Kurt, I can say this honestly, and I've legitimately been a fan of most of everything I've seen you in. I always enjoy your performances in, and No Holds Barred, but Psych especially is a very special show for me. So it's just great to spend some time with you and discuss this. And, everyone needs to go out and see Masters of Puppets, of course.
Thank you very much. It was my absolute pleasure.
This is The Collection. Now your host, the Boat, Brad Gilmore.